So the rumour mill has been swirling, and possible spoilers for our next games after the DLC have been uttered in the secret circles that is Twitter. I won't go into much detail, but a certain leaker said that the next game after the DLC will be something related to Unova. And one of the poll options that was given was Paradox sequels, an interesting idea. I mean, anything will be better than Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl tier remakes. We've had quite a bit of little drops of info, but my mind just couldn't tear away from the thought of Paradox sequels. Black and White and their sequels are known for being about truth and ideals, yada yada, but more so than that, kind of nature versus technology. I mean, Reshiram is fire and Zekrom is electricity, and we also have White Forest and Black City, which is incredibly past and future. So I feel like that's almost too perfect to introduce a new game centered around our new Paradox Pokemon. Now, a bit of a warning, this concept is not like a whole story synopsis, but I wanted to show some ideas to the legendaries of these Paradox games. This also breaks away from the professor's imagination ideas, or maybe not, maybe this is the world where they actually got the Scarlet and Violet paradoxes from, who knows. Not me, I'm just an artist. But let me weave you a short idea of what this game would be. So this game would be set in the future. I know, how is that a Paradox game if it's only future you scream into your device of choice? But in this future, Kyujum, our Grandiced chicken dragon, is gone, its body unable to gain the power needed to keep itself together, and thus it has fallen apart. This would take into consideration that Kyujum and subsequently the other legendaries were released by the protags in N, with Reshiram and Zekrom completely disappeared as well with no trace. Your character's hometown would be from either the White Forest or Black City depending on version, as well as the base of the Plasma Research Labs, who, just like many Pokemon games, continues the streak of being very normal scientists. This Team Plasma isn't though interested in the liberation of Pokemon or whatever BS Getsus was trying to fling, but they are interested in either creating robotic Pokemon for preservation reasons, as well as showing off their strength, or bringing back Pokemon from the far-flung past to maintain their true form. And what better Pokemon to try and flex these silly truths and ideals and to create the Pokemon Kyujum? Listen, these are scientists, they are smart but not wise. Wisdom is their dump stat, or maybe strength. To do this feat, however, Team Plasma found something interesting in the giant chasm. Chunks of ice have preserved a strange Pokemon that may contain the secret to bringing back Kyujum. The idea for this Pokemon is very simple. It would be like a Cosmog or Cosmoem, a Pokemon that's small and not the most interesting or powerful. It's literally just a gem from Kyujum in its form's forehead, with a mysterious eye in it. The bottom half of it I wanted to show a sort of almost digital pattern coming off of it, while the top half just being jagged and spiky and primitive, a little combo of both past and future. This wouldn't be a form of Kyujum, mind you, instead I gave it the silly name Kyujum. So it's like the world's weirdest convergent Pokemon. It was super fun trying to make it look transparent by giving that darker and lighter parts beyond that of the normal shading, as well as integrating the gem's colour into the eye, so it would be pushed back into the gem. A simple but effective Pokemon. Kyujum, the relic crystal Pokemon, a steel and rock type. In an age gone past, a Pokemon known as Kyujum reigned. However, its cellular structure was unstable, and due to never being truly complete, it fell apart. In our modern age, scientists found in the last known spot of Kyujum this Pokemon, dubbed Kyujum, possibly the last fragment left of the boundary Pokemon. Whether by reconstructing the original body with mechanics or using ancient DNA to bring back Kyujum, this Pokemon is now in the control of the Plasma Research Lab for their own nefarious deeds. Kyujum seems to be drawn to people with strong feelings on both truth and ideals. Kyujum's ability is Paradox Drive, which boosts the highest stat of a Paradox Pokemon when that ally enters a battle. Whether or not you'd find Kyujum or it was found by Team Plasma, eventually it'd come into their clutches, and that's when it'd start to get a bit dicey with the legendaries. Now in these games, Reshiram and Zekrom are their normal everyday selves and wouldn't exactly be the focus of the games. In fact, they're more like fodder for our true legendaries. Let's take a look at our two different forms of Kyujum. In Black version, reconstructed as a robot, while in the past version, a wildly different looking, more draconic creature. I wanted for future Kyujum for it to feel very unfinished, like it gained sentience and then immediately broke out before it was complete, set on fusing with the other two legends to become the true dragon. Like the original, its body is very blocky, but instead of made of iron, the icy parts instead replaced with shimmering steel. Because the original Kyurem had the weird fusion tendril things, future Kyurem instead has these discs with an almost similar sort of use, but also how cool would it be if these were missile launchers? Instead of arms, I replace it with dangling wires made to only replicate original Kyurem. You can actually see Kyujum has taken on a bit of an angular form and its eye is still visible as it is now in control of the iron fragments unit. Funny enough, colours are pretty similar to original Kyurem, but instead of ice and blues, I went for yellows and reds for the various other parts. I also ended up adding a little digital pattern to the back end to link it back to Kyujum a little more. Iron Fragment, the Paradox Pokemon, a steel and ice type. Built by Team Plasma to resemble the original Pokemon Kyurem, and using the last known fragment of Kyurem to power it, this Pokemon only got midway through construction before raising the lab it was created in. Its body is in a state of disrepair, but it has only one goal, to complete itself by finding its two other parts, Reshiram and Zekrom, and will stop at nothing to complete this goal. Its body, although not made of ice, has the ability to freeze the area around it. It is extremely cold to the touch. Iron Fragment's ability is Cold Steel, which this Pokemon's physical steel type moves have a very low chance of freezing the opponent. Past Paradoxes go fairly dinosaur for most of them, so for Growling Moor, our past Kyurem, I wanted it to be a quadruped with large rending talons. I referenced Koraidon a lot for this one, giving it a sort of tattooed body, and instead of ice it has feathers that don't really work. It's a flightless bird. I turned Kyurem into a dangerous terror bird sort of thing. I kind of like how it feels like Kyurem mainly in shape, but it still looks like a scarred leftover of the original dragon, even as this strange apex hunter. For the typing, I chose Dark and Fighting. I don't see any need for any elemental abilities in this form, at least for now, and it looks much more ready for a scrap than our other hunk of scrap. In this form, Kyujum is fully gone, becoming perfectly fused with the original body of Kyurem. Growling Moor, the Paradox Pokemon, a Dark and Fighting type. Revived by Team Plasma using Kyujum's DNA, this resembles the Pokemon Kyurem, but much of its body is covered in a feathery down compared to the ice the original had. Although unable to fly, it can leap massive lengths that end in a crushing attack on any prey unfortunate enough to be underneath this Pokemon. It seems to have quite the penchant for hunting, but it has only two targets, Reshiram and Zekrom. Its rampage to try and find its two other parts led to the destruction of the lab it was made in. Growling Moor has a new ability called Ancient Violence, where this Pokemon's physical moves have lower accuracy but higher damage, and a small chance to confuse on hit. So each of the two forms of Kyurem would rage out and break free from the lab on the hunt for their other parts. Your character probably coming along to the places where your Kyurem has torn apart, trying to stop the raging menace. While Iron Fragments would do the fusion drive of the original, Growling Moor maybe has tendrils within the wings to fuse, or maybe in a darker turn it has to bite down on our other legendaries to become its true form. Either way, once they get their hands, tendrils, whatever, on one of the legendaries, they fuse together, but even these aren't our box legends. Though you can get all the legends in both games, just not past or future forms. So let's look at our first two future forms. The future forms are a much more literal version of a futurified version of the original. All the parts that were ice are now robotics, as if Dr. Eggman semi-roboticized them. I did want to change how they looked a little though, giving a large clunky hand for Iron Taser, and the tail, instead of being almost a sort of generator, now is an unleashed energy tail crackling with electricity. In both forms, the fusion cables from Kyurem become sort of missile pod shoulders which end up fitting really well into the design. I like how unsettling the design is, with implications that the inside of the body is also mostly robot, with the neck cables being shown. Man, I love Kyurem Black and White, what an absolute banger design. Iron Taser, the Paradox Pokemon, an electric and ice type. Found by Iron Fragments, this Pokemon was assimilated into it to become a biomechanical creature, and now searches for its last fragment, Reshiram. Its energy wanes and grows due to its incomplete nature, but at maximum energy its electricity power bursts forth from its body and strikes out at everything. It is an incredibly destructive Pokemon. It can fly at surprising speeds even with its large mechanical body and weight. It has been seen taking out plasma air carriers simply by flying through them. Iron Taser's ability is Terravolt. Iron Furnace is probably my favourite design I did this video. Instead of the wide, beautiful tail connected to the body, it's become a literal rocket blast, super hot fire out the back of it. Due to this, the wings are no longer being used to fly and have become these fiery arm blades built for combat. Much like the actual future Paradox Pokemon, I went away from giving them all the steel type, as fitting as it is. I find it weird that black and white Kyurem don't get fire ice and electric ice types, so I thought that it'd be more fun for this situation. There's something about the darker looking fire in this form that I really love and can totally see this thing just jetting around, slicing through Team Plasma labs and hideouts with ease. Iron Furnace, the Paradox Pokemon, a fire and ice type. Found by iron fragments, this Pokemon was assimilated into it to become a biomechanical creature. It now searches for its last fragment, Zekrom. It uses the fiery blade on its arm to completely cut through metal like it is butter, leaving molten slag in its wake. It blitzes through anything in its way with a steel hard body that not many can pierce to damage it. If its energy falls too low, the engine on its tail loses the fire that blasts out. This is the only time this Pokemon seems peaceful. Iron Furnace's ability is Turbo Blaze. So we have our two future forms built more for defense and offense. So next let's look at our two more primal forms for Kyurem White and Black, created after a successful hunt. Shocking Horn, the past Kyurem Black, I wanted to be this bigger, stockier version of it, with sort of massive gorilla arms that hang down and hold the Pokemon up. This form loses any kind of electrical power in its tail, but instead it has a horn that I imagine would light up, and it even loses the power of flight, with its wings becoming almost vestigial. Although Growling more has white fur, I didn't want to remove the identity of the original, so this form has that same black, feathery form that will play into the final design afterwards. A lot of past Paradox Pokemon have wilder, more colourful eyes, so I gave it that stormy blue, along with blue accents that would light up when it attacks, maybe shifting throughout its body as it charges with electricity. Shocking Horn gains the fighting type from Growling more, which is interesting for a special attacker, but that just means Focus Blast bombs. Shocking Horn, the Paradox Pokemon, an electric and fighting type. Fused with Zekrom, this Pokemon has almost completed its hunt. The last target, Reshiram, can no longer escape. Its low center of gravity allows this Pokemon to unleash destructive blasts of electricity from its mouth without a single ounce of recoil inflicted upon it. The body of this Pokemon is stocky and would push apart trees in its way with no regard for the environment. The large horn on its head will absorb electricity from the atmosphere and be stored for even more destructive power. Shocking Horn's ability is Terravolt. For Burning Talons, I wanted to show off a very feral looking version of the original Kyurem White. This thing can no longer fly, so those feathers kind of just fall off and turn into small accents that light up when it's feeling heated. With more Raptorian claws that oppose the original design, this Pokemon is built for physical attacks, with fire and dark type. The entire body is a bit ragged and the head fluff even flows much less smoothly as this thing is ruthless and dangerous. I wanted to show that these past Pokemon are dangerous and calculating, able to hunt down the final parts of their body with almost no problem. Burning Talon, the Paradox Pokemon, a dark and fire type. Fused with Reshiram, this Pokemon has almost completed its hunt. The last target, Zekrom, can no longer escape. Its body runs at an extreme heat that make it uncomfortable to stand near for very long. It can channel this heat into their claws on their hands and feet to be able to slash and burn at an opponent. It's a ruthless ancient hunter, but it seems rather smart. It will not hunt something it deems unworthy, choosing to hyper-focus on something that shows its worth. It cannot fly, but leaping and running it is unmatched in. Burning Talon's ability is Turbo Blaze. So with our 4 fused mons, depending on the version, they would almost instinctively hunt down their last part. It would be almost too easy for them, especially as Team Plasma tried to lure in the Pokemon by containing either Zekrom or Reshiram at their final lab location. By the time you get there, the battle is already lost as either Reshiram or Zekrom would be defeated. I guess depending on the version would be the Pokemon you'd find defeated, with Reshiram for black and Zekrom for white. But it doesn't matter, the newly fused Pokemon would emerge, the true dragon. Well, not really. These are just the past and future representations of this Pokemon, so I went a bit wild with the idea. Maybe one day I'll make a normal fused version, but for now let's meet Kyujum. Maybe this would even be the final battle of the game. I wanted Kyujum Future to be a giant hulking creature with no organic parts left, save for maybe Kyujum embedded in the head. It leans a little closer to Iron Taser instead with its body plan and massive arms hanging low. It combines multiple parts of both designs and employs the orange and blue for that cool complementary colours. This thing would be a massive intimidating force like a transformer. That'd be cool, maybe it could transform into a jet. Drawing a robotic form more like this is actually rather interesting, employing more angular parts than what most normal Pokemon have. That's what we get when the cute and fluffiness is roboticized out of a Pokemon. Kyujum Future Form, the Paradox Pokemon, a fire and electric type. By assimilating both Reshiram and Zekrom, it has been able to use the infinite energy they contain to complete itself. However, the mind of this Pokemon is completely focused on nothing but destruction. The exhausts of this Pokemon are both shocking and superheated. Its entire body is actually too dangerous to get close to. This makes it difficult to try and stop when it's in a frenzy. Not even Team Plasma expected this Pokemon to be as difficult to handle, and were annihilated in this Pokemon's rage. Kyujum has a new ability called Simulation Engine, where this Pokemon's ability is a combination of the three that made it. Kyujum Future would have a new attack called Melting Point. It's a multi-typed, multi-physical and special split move, with 100 base power, 90 accuracy and 5 PP. The user overcharges their body and becomes a living cannonball, launching themselves at the enemy with powerful electricity, followed by a wave of burning slipstream. This move will be physical or special depending on the opponent's defenses, whichever is lowest, as well as either fire or electric type depending on their weaknesses. For past Kyujum, its body stands a little taller, maybe taking a bit more from the Kyurem White version. It combines the colours of both the black and white feathers of its recipe, and becomes a light and dark grey dragon with the blue and reddish purple colours of the two shifting off the tips of its feathers. In this form, the feathers cover a bit more of the body with only hints of the tattooed skin underneath showing, and with a couple more gems sticking out of its arm, which kind of call back to the very crystalline Area Zero, where original paradoxes are found. This is what I imagine the original dragon would look closer to be honest, although maybe without them sick tats and horns, but definitely would be that similar grey. Kyujum Past Form, the Paradox Pokemon, a fire and electric type. It has successfully hunted both Reshiram and Zekrom and is now the perfect hunter and a master of the elements. The patience and viciousness of all Pokemon have combined, but the rage hasn't subsided, so it has found a new target in Team Plasma, and it won't stop till all is gone having to do with them. It can unleash pulses of electric or fire to suit the situation, and it even has the power to partially absorb those elements and use them back on the attacker. Perhaps even this Pokemon can be calmed by the right trainer. This Pokemon has the new ability Perfected Hunter, which this Pokemon's ability is a combination of the three that made it. Kyujum Past has a new move called Blaze Bolt Frenzy, a 60 base power, 100 accuracy, 10 PP physical, electric and fire type attack. The user quickly charges their claws with elemental energy and slashes right through the opponent, gaining a wild frenzy from the attack. This attack can hit from 2 to 5 times, each hit changing from electric to fire type. If the user uses this move on the next turn and each turn in succession, the amount of times this move can hit will increase up to 10 hits. After defeating Kyujum, I imagine it would split apart, leaving only the Kyurem left over, able to catch, and then would start a post-game journey of catching and fusing all the Pokemon together to get your perfect dragon. Well, pseudo-dragons, we had to sacrifice that dragon type in the process, similarly to the Seal type. But what do you think of the designs in the video? Would you be happy if the games shown were Paradox versions of Black and White? Maybe in a Legends Arceus style? Comment down below your thoughts and don't forget to like and subscribe. In the next video we're going to do a 5k celebration by doing fake mon from your comment requests. Thanks so much for watching and see you next time.